One man, one idea. An outsider who rose from janitor to legend. This is the story of Richard Montañez, the man who saved Frito-Lay, who started out working at a vineyard. His father was an alcoholic, and as a minority, Richard faced brutal bullying in school. He'd bring a simple burrito for lunch, but the kids would mock him. It had peas, a sign of poverty. Richard, though, never let it break his spirit. Then, a flash of entrepreneurship. Richard brought a stack of homemade burritos, first sharing one with a friend, then even convincing one of his bullies to try it. The bully loved the taste. Suddenly, all the other kids wanted a bite. Richard, sharp and quick, seized the moment and started selling them, 25 cents apiece. Soon, he was sitting on a pile of cash. He went to the store to buy chocolates, but seeing a boy with so much money immediately raised suspicion. This was the 1960s, a time when Mexican Americans were frequently looked down upon. The police were called, they seized Richard, and treated him like a major criminal. The incident left a deep scar. As he grew up, that constant unjust treatment pushed him onto a dark path. He became the very criminal they thought he was, running drugs. The turning point came with love and responsibility. He reconnected with his school friend Judy. They fell deeply in love. And when she got pregnant, he felt the true weight of his life for the first time. He broke away from his gang, married Judy, and they started a family. With 2 children, Richard desperately tried to provide, working as an electrician. But the expenses were too high and the income too low. He couldn't keep up. He searched for a better job while Judy supported the family, selling goods on the street. Richard didn't have a good relationship with his dad, but nonetheless, he returned home. Given his dire financial situation, he started contemplating rejoining the drug dealer gang. This brought him to Tony Romero, the gang's leader. However, Tony refused to take him back, fearing it would negatively impact Richard's family. It was there that Richard ran into Tony, who, like him, had previously left the gang and was now living an ordinary life. He was currently working at a food factory. Richard sought Tony's help, and Tony, in turn, referred him to Frito-Lay, a massive food industry where famous snacks like Lay's, Cheetos, and Doritos were produced. Richard was given an application form there, but he became nervous and brought the form home instead of filling it out on the spot. Later, Judy filled out his form. She wrote down Richard's education as St. Bernard High School, even though Richard had never actually attended high school. She figured the company would never verify it, so she lied. The next day, he took the form to the manager. Unluckily for him, the manager had also studied at St. Bernard High School. Because of this, he immediately caught Richard's lie. The manager was about to reject Richard, but Richard pleaded with him. The manager ended up offering him a job as a caretaker. Working at such a large company was a matter of great pride for Richard. He completely immersed himself in his work and slowly began gathering information about all the machinery in the factory. In this endeavor, he asked a machine operator for information on how to run the machine, but the operator angrily told him to focus on his own job. Richard didn't show his anger over this, knowing that any wrong move could cost him his job. A few days later, Richard met Clarence Baker, a senior machine operator. Baker had taught himself everything about the machines, and when he saw Richard's passion, he decided to help him. Baker began teaching Richard about all the machines in detail. Richard would ask any number of questions, and Baker would answer them thoroughly. Gradually, Richard's knowledge grew, and he became adept at learning about every single machine in the factory. One day, as Richard and Baker were talking, Tony interrupted their conversation. He then tried to explain to Richard that if he wanted to keep his job, he needed to maintain distance from his seniors. He also revealed that although Baker was the most experienced machine operator, he hadn't been promoted to the plant manager position. The reason was simply that he was black, and in that era, white people looked down on black people. But Richard didn't pay attention to Tony's warnings. He didn't want to remain just a caretaker. He wanted to advance significantly in life. He aimed to become a success story like Pepsi CEO Roger Enrico, the leader of Coca-Cola's rival company. Frito-Lay was also under the Pepsi holding company, so Richard felt he had a big opportunity to move up. Richard used his old school trick to get closer to Baker. He bribed Baker with a burrito. Baker now understood Richard's passion, so every day during cleanup, he carefully answered all of Richard's questions and began giving him complete information about the machines. Richard became so engrossed in his work that he only went home for a few hours. Most of his time was now spent at the factory. Due to his hard work and dedication, he was even awarded the title of Employee of the Month. Forward to 1991, an economic recession hit America, causing many people to lose their jobs. Although Richard managed to save his job, his working hours were cut. To meet his needs, Richard voluntarily began working in other departments as well. It was during this time that he noticed Frito-Lay's products were made only for white Americans. There were no special products for the Latino community that catered specifically to their taste. Now, due to the recession, the company's sales had dropped. To remedy this situation, CEO Roger Enrico released a motivational video. In the video, he appealed to his employees to think like a CEO and contribute new ideas to the company. In Richard's factory, he was the only one who paid close attention to this video. Everyone else ignored it, but Richard saw an opportunity in this difficult time. One day, while he was at the park with his two sons, he observed people eagerly eating Mexican spicy corn. He realized that people genuinely loved spicy and flavorful food. This realization sparked a new idea in his mind. He came home and told Judy about this idea. He believed this new product could capture the Latino market and boost the company's sales. He asked Judy for help. Then, he discussed his idea with Baker and prepared to experiment at home using raw materials. Following this, he bought a heap of Mexican spices from a shop and began experimenting with different blends. What he didn't know was that Frito-Lay's research team was also working on a similar product. The only difference was that their product was purely chemical-based, whereas Richard used entirely natural ingredients. After many attempts, Richard finally created a product that was extremely tasty. Richard's son became a fanatic of this new flavor. His overwhelming praise convinced Richard that his idea could truly work. The next day, when he went to the company, he saw many people being laid off due to the recession. This made Richard even more anxious. He immediately spoke to the manager about his product, insisting it needed to reach the CEO. But the manager felt, why would the CEO listen to a caretaker? And flat out refused. That night, Richard quietly went to the manager's office and pulled out the CEO's office number. The next day, he called the CEO's office directly. The call was received by the CEO's assistant, who was astonished to hear that a caretaker had called the CEO directly. But as Richard passionately described his product, his dedication impressed her, and she transferred his call to the CEO. Over the phone, Richard told the CEO about the product he had created. He explained that he was Mexican, and most Mexicans loved spicy snacks. Furthermore, when he mentioned that he got the idea from the CEO's motivational video, the CEO was impressed and agreed to test his product. The CEO received and tasted the product. The initial reaction, "It's too spicy." But then, as he continued to eat it, he realized the taste was addictive. Overall, the CEO loved the product. So, he told Richard that he would visit his branch in 2 weeks to discuss it further. News of the CEO's arrival rattled the manager. He thought the idea was useless and would only waste the company's time and resources. If the idea failed, even the jobs of those currently employed could be at risk. Additionally, the manager felt that a simple caretaker like Richard had no right to speak to the CEO. The manager's words distressed Richard. Richard didn't want anyone else to lose their job because of him. He began to lose hope in this difficult time, but Judy supported him and took him to the library, where they both prepared the presentation for the CEO. Baker also helped Richard, teaching him the right way to deliver a presentation so he could effectively convey his message. The next day, CEO Roger Enrico arrived at the company with his team. Richard, who had prepared diligently for the presentation, couldn't deliver it well. But then he started speaking in his own way. He explained that the snacks available in the market felt boring to the Latino community because they lacked spice. He clarified that Latino people prefer spicy and flavorful food. He stressed that the company had ignored this large market until now, and this was a huge opportunity. Some members of the CEO's team tried to belittle him, but Roger understood Richard's idea and decided to invest in it. In the first phase, 5,000 packets were made, and this new product was named Cheetos Flamin Hot. When the product launched in the market initially, no one bought it. Because of this, company executive James suggested stopping the experiment, but the manager and Richard pleaded with him and asked for 1 week's time. Now, Richard began to doubt his own capabilities. He felt he was not worthy of making such big decisions in such a large company. He became disheartened. Baker reassured him and told him not to give up. Richard came home, where his son asked him a question. "Dad, I have never seen any ad for Cheetos Flamin' Hot." This single thought resonated in Richard's mind. Richard now approached his old gang and Tony. He told Tony that he could offer him his job back, but for that, Tony would have to help him. Tony and the rest of the gang members agreed. They all then headed to the factory. Richard explained that his new product was about to shut down the company because its sales were poor, but in reality, people simply didn't know about the product. So, Richard planned to distribute the remaining product to the Latino community to ensure it reached people and saved the jobs of the company's workers. With the help of everyone, he distributed Cheetos Flamin' Hot among the Latino people, urging them to try the product and boost its sales. Following this, Richard went to the store with his children and began buying the Cheetos himself. Seeing this, others became curious and started buying the product too. Richard's idea finally worked, and the company's sales rapidly began to increase. The CEO was ecstatic about this. He then called Richard and placed an order for 5 million Cheetos, which were to be made right in Richard's plant. Richard and everyone else were overjoyed. To complete this massive order, the people who had been laid off were called back, including Tony. 6 months passed quickly. The company's situation began to improve, and it returned to the position it held before the economic recession. All of this was made possible by Richard and his creation, Flamin' Hot. Baker was promoted to the new plant manager, a post he fully deserved. Richard also hoped he would get the machine operator promotion, but for many days he received no promotion at all. Then, one day, CEO Roger Enrico suddenly arrived at the office and announced Richard's promotion. But it wasn't just a machine operator promotion. The CEO made Richard the director of multicultural marketing. This was huge for Richard. He was only dreaming of becoming a machine operator, but now he had been made a director. Roger wanted Richard to use his local testing skills to create different products, accelerating the company's growth even further. Everyone was thrilled with Richard's promotion because their jobs had been saved because of him. When Richard shared this news with his wife, Judy, she was first in shock, then burst into sheer happiness. Following this, Richard continued his work with full dedication. He created new and excellent products, bringing Frito-Lay a wealth of new customers and greatly contributing to the company's growth. Because of this, Richard came to be known as the Godfather of Latino marketing. Richard's journey, which began in a caretaker's position, took him to the post of a top company executive due to his hard work and dedication. In the year 2019, after 40 years of service, Richard retired. And that was the end of this story. This story teaches us that if you give your 100% to your work with complete dedication and effort, success is sure to follow. That's the end of the movie. I really liked it. How about you? Let me know in the comments.